A prime murder suspect sits down with detectives. He matches multiple witness descriptions, down to the specific commercial van he drives. During questioning, he even volunteers to drive police out to a remote forest clearing where he takes women. It happens to be the exact spot where the victim's body was found. The officers have their man, but they don't arrest him. Under strict orders from their superior, the detectives inform the suspect he is in the clear, and they let him walk out the door. He didn't escape on a legal technicality, and the police weren't short on evidence. This suspect walked free because Scotland's most expensive murder investigation was actively tearing itself apart from the inside. Emma Caldwell's life unraveled when her older sister died of cancer. The trauma pushed Emma into heroin addiction, and to fund that habit, she turned to the highly vulnerable world of street sex work in Glasgow. In April of 2005, the 27-year-old vanished. Women working in Glasgow's red light district routinely faced physical abuse, targeting, and sexual violence from clients, leaving Emma's family fearing the worst. 5 weeks later, a dog walker found her body. She had been strangled with a piece of wire and left in a shallow ditch in Limefield Woods, a remote rural area 43 miles away from where she was last seen. Strathclyde police launched the biggest murder investigation in their history. A task force of 50 officers gathered 8,000 statements and collected hundreds of DNA samples to track down her killer. But all that manpower and budget meant very little. The entire operation was doomed to fail because the police department was unknowingly running two conflicting investigations at the exact same time. On the ground, the primary detective team, known as Operation Grail, was actually making fast progress. They quickly zeroed in on a client named Ian Packer, whom sex workers described as violently obsessed with Anna. Multiple women came forward. They told police Packer drove a distinct sign repair van, refused to use protection, and had a history of forcing them into remote areas. His name was heavily featured in an underground warning book kept by local sex workers. When Grail detectives brought Packer in for questioning, he admitted to knowing Emma. Then, in a surreal moment, he offered to retrace the driving route he typically took with sex workers. He led officers directly to a silver gate in a rural forest, exactly overlapping the deposition site where Emma's body was discovered. The ground detectives were certain they had the killer. They took this geographical and circumstantial evidence straight to their boss. The senior investigating officer's response was absolute: drop Ian Packer immediately. The ground-level detectives had to follow the institutional hierarchy. They had their prime suspect in their grasp, but they were explicitly ordered to look the other way. The Grail detectives didn't know that their boss was running a secret, parallel unit called Operation Guard. This top-down investigation was entirely concealed from the officers on the street. The top brass leading Operation Guard had developed severe confirmation bias. They were fixated on a local Turkish cafe because of a single piece of circumstantial evidence: a 72-second phone call made from a man at the cafe to Emma's phone on the night she vanished. Based on that one phone call, the brass authorized an incredibly expensive, around-the-clock visual and audio surveillance campaign, planting listening devices inside the cafe and assigning a small army of officers to monitor it. The leadership was so obsessed with proving their cafe theory that they actively shut down the Grail team's very real physical evidence against Ian Packer. They wanted their surveillance op to be the answer. After burning through £4 million monitoring the cafe, the top brass finally moved in and confidently charged 4 Turkishmen with Emma's murder. The prosecution rested heavily on translated wiretaps from the cafe, but the officers assigned to translate the Turkish dialogue were not experts. One of the officers only held a high school equivalent O-level qualification in the language. When the defense brought in independent linguistic experts to review the recordings for trial, they found the audio completely indecipherable. It sounded like men sitting around a television. The evidence evaporated instantly, and the case collapsed before it even reached a courtroom. It was a catastrophic administrative failure. The police department was humiliated, the 4 wrongly accused men were released, and the actual killer was entirely ignored by the system. Because the police officially cleared Ian Packer to protect their own flawed investigation, he was free to walk the streets for another 15 years. He did not stop. Over the next decade and a half, Packer hunted freely. eventually racking up 33 charges for violence and sexual assault against 22 different women, including a 14-year-old girl. This administrative tunnel vision allowed a serial predator to remain on the streets, hunting new victims for 15 years while the police looked the other way. By 2019, Packer felt entirely untouchable. He arrogantly reached out to BDC journalist Samantha Poling, volunteering to participate in a documentary to publicly clear his name. Poling took the meeting, but she also did the basic ground-level police work the senior detectives had refused to do. She tracked down his previous victims, collecting independent testimonies of his violence, attempted strangulations, and rapes. When the camera rolled, Packer gave his standard, polite denials. Then Poling ambushed him. She confronted a dumbfounded Packer with an undeniable mountain of evidence detailing his history of abuse. It took a single journalist with a microphone to expose the truth that a multi-million-pound police operation had actively buried 15 years prior. The public exposure from the documentary forced authorities to reopen the evidence. On February 28, 2022, Ian Packer was finally convicted of Emma Caldwell's murder, alongside numerous other sexual assaults, and sentenced to life in prison. Emma Caldwell's death stands as a grim warning about the acute dangers of institutional arrogance and confirmation bias inside the justice system. When institutions prioritize internal theories over undeniable facts, they fail the dead and leave the living vulnerable to the predators they refuse to see.